My mother sat across from me in that courtroom, looking smug, her lawyer beside her with a stack of papers ready to prove I owed her my house. She thought because she helped with the down payment 6 years ago, she owned half of everything I built. She thought the judge would side with her because I was her son, and family is family. She thought I would cave under pressure and just hand over the keys to keep the peace. What she did not know was that I had been recording every conversation, saving every text, documenting every threat for 3 years, and I was about to show her exactly what happens when you try to steal from someone who thinks ahead. Drop a comment telling me where you are watching from, hit that like button, and subscribe, because what happened when I presented my evidence changed everything between us forever. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona with my mom and younger sister. My dad left when I was 8, never paid child support, never looked back. My mom worked 2 jobs to keep us fed and housed. She was a waitress during the day, cleaned office buildings at night. Money was always tight, but she made sure we had what we needed. I respected her for that. She sacrificed a lot to raise us alone. I was always good with numbers, excelled in math and science. Got a scholarship to Arizona State University, studied finance. Worked part-time throughout college, graduated with minimal debt. My mom was proud. She came to my graduation, cried during the ceremony, told everyone her son was going to be successful. I was the first person in our family to get a 4-year degree. After graduation, I got hired by an investment firm in Scottsdale. Entry-level analyst position, decent pay for a 22-year-old. I lived cheap, rented a room in a house with 3 other guys, saved aggressively. My goal was to buy property before I turned 30. Real estate felt like the smartest long-term investment, especially in a growing market like Phoenix. My mom and I stayed close during those early years. I visited her every other weekend, helped her with bills when she needed it, fixed things around her apartment. She was dating someone at the time, a guy named Frank, who seemed decent enough. He had a construction job, treated her well. I thought maybe she had finally found some stability. When I was 26, I found a house I wanted to buy. Small 3-bedroom in Tempe, needed some cosmetic work, but solid bones. The price was $185,000. I had saved $40,000 for a down payment, but needed $5,000 more to cover closing costs and immediate repairs. I asked my mom if she could loan it to me. I promised to pay her back within a year with interest. She said yes, but with a condition. She wanted to be on the title. Said it was for her security, to make sure I did not just take her money and disappear like my father did. I was young, naive, wanted the house badly. I agreed. We went to the title company together. I put down $40,000. She put down $5,000. Both our names went on the deed as joint tenants with rights of survivorship. I did not think much of it at the time. She was my mom. I trusted her, and I fully intended to pay her back and then refinance to get her name off the title once I had more equity. It seemed like a fair arrangement. She was helping me get started. I was grateful. I moved into that house and immediately started fixing it up. Painted every room, replaced old fixtures, redid the landscaping, spent weekends at hardware stores learning how to do basic repairs myself. The house started looking great. My mom came by sometimes, complimented my work, seemed proud that I was building something. 6 months after buying the house, I paid her back the $5,000 plus $500 in interest. She accepted the money but never mentioned taking her name off the title. I assumed we would handle that eventually. I was focused on my career, on continuing to improve the house, on building my life. The title issue felt like paperwork I could deal with later. Then things shifted. My mom broke up with Frank. She did not tell me why, just said it did not work out. She started calling me more often, asking for money. Small amounts at first, $200 for a car repair, $300 for a medical bill. I helped because she was my mom and she had helped me, but the requests became more frequent. Every month she needed something. Rent, utilities, groceries. I was basically supporting her while also paying my own mortgage. Around year 3 of owning the house, she started making comments about moving in with me, said her apartment was getting too expensive. Said I had extra bedrooms just sitting empty, said family should help family. I told her I valued my space, that I was not ready to live with anyone. She seemed hurt but dropped it. Then she started bringing up the house differently, saying things like our house instead of your house, reminding me that her name was on the title too, joking that she should get to decorate since she was part owner. I laughed it off at first, thought she was just being weird, but the comments continued and they stopped feeling like jokes. Year 4, she showed up at my house with a suitcase, said she had been evicted from her apartment, had nowhere else to go, needed to stay with me temporarily. I let her in, because what else was I going to do? She was my mother. She moved into the spare bedroom, said it would just be a few weeks until she found a new place. Weeks turned into months. She was not looking for apartments. She was settling in, rearranging furniture, buying things for the house without asking, acting like she owned the place. When I brought up her finding her own apartment, she got defensive, said I was being ungrateful, reminded me she helped me buy this house, said I owed her. That is when I started to realize this was not temporary. This was her plan all along. Get her name on the title, wait for the right moment, then claim ownership. I started researching my options, talked to a real estate lawyer. He told me that as joint tenants, she legally did have ownership rights, that removing her from the title would require her consent or a court order, that if I wanted her out, I would need to either buy her out or prove she had no equitable interest in the property. I decided to document everything from that point forward, every conversation, every text, every demand. I started recording our interactions on my phone. Arizona is a one-party consent state, meaning I could legally record conversations without telling her. I backed up everything to cloud storage. I had a feeling I was going to need proof of what was really happening. My mom lived with me for 8 months. During that time, she contributed nothing financially. No rent, no utilities, no groceries. She also started inviting people over without asking. Her friends, her sister, random people I did not know. My house became her hangout spot. When I objected, she said she had every right to have guests in her own home. Her home, not my home, hers. I asked her to leave multiple times. Each time she refused. Said legally she could not be forced out because her name was on the deed. Said if I had a problem with it, I could leave. She was calling my bluff, thinking I would not actually do anything about it. I consulted with my lawyer again. He said my options were limited. I could file a partition action which would force the sale of the house and split the proceeds, but that meant I would lose my home. Or I could try to negotiate a buyout paying her for her share, but she would have to agree to a price, and something told me she would demand far more than the $5,000 she contributed. I decided to try negotiating first. I sat her down and offered her $10,000 to sign a quitclaim deed and remove herself from the title. Double what she put in, plus she had been living rent-free for months. Seemed more than fair. She laughed in my face, said the house was worth $300,000 now, said she was entitled to half, $150,000 for a $5,000 investment. I told her that was insane, that she had no legal basis to claim half. She said we could let a judge decide. Then she handed me a letter from her lawyer. She was suing me for partition and sale of the property, claiming equal ownership based on being a joint tenant on the deed. She wanted to force the sale of my house and take half the proceeds. I was furious. This was the woman who raised me, who I helped support for years, and she was trying to steal my house out from under me. But I kept my composure. I told her fine, we will see what a judge says. She smiled like she had already won. What she did not know was that I had been preparing for this. I had 3 years of documentation, texts where she admitted I paid her back the $5,000, recordings of conversations where she said she only wanted her name on the title temporarily for security, bank statements showing I made every single mortgage payment, every property tax payment, every insurance payment, receipts for every repair and improvement I made to the house, a paper trail proving she contributed $5,000 once and nothing ever again. I also had something else, a recording from 2 years prior where she explicitly said she was not an owner just on the title as a precaution. She said, and I quote, "I know it is your house. I just wanted to make sure I could not get screwed like I did with your father." That recording alone destroyed her entire case. My lawyer was confident. He said we had more than enough evidence to prove she had no equitable interest in the property beyond the initial $5,000 which I had already repaid, that her claims of equal ownership were baseless, that the judge would likely order her to sign a quitclaim deed and award me attorney fees for her frivolous lawsuit. But my mom was stubborn. She refused to drop the case. She genuinely believed she would win. Her lawyer probably told her she had a chance because her name was on the deed. But her lawyer did not know about the recordings, did not know about the documentation. I was holding that back for court. The court date arrived on a Tuesday morning in March. I showed up with my lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia, who specialized in real estate disputes. My mom showed up with her lawyer, an older man named Gerald, who looked like he had seen better days. We sat on opposite sides of the courtroom. She would not even look at me. Her sister was there for support, glaring at me like I was the villain. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s named Judge Ramirez, called the case. My mom's lawyer went first. He argued that his client was a joint tenant on the deed, that she had an ownership interest in the property, that she was entitled to partition and sale. He presented the deed showing both our names. He presented her initial $5,000 contribution. He painted me as an ungrateful son, trying to cut his mother out of an investment she helped make possible. Then it was our turn. Patricia stood up and calmly explained the reality of the situation, that my mother contributed $5,000 toward a down payment 6 years ago, that I repaid her in full within 6 months. That I had made every mortgage payment, every tax payment, every insurance payment, every repair expense for the entire duration of ownership, that my mother had contributed nothing to the property beyond the initial loan, which had been repaid. Patricia presented bank statements, payment records, receipts. She built a timeline showing exactly who paid for what. The numbers were clear. I had put in over $170,000 into the house between the initial down payment, 6 years of mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, and improvements. My mother had put in $5,000, which she got back. My mom's lawyer objected, saying it did not matter who paid for what, that the deed showed joint ownership, and that was the end of it. Judge Ramirez looked skeptical, but allowed him to continue. Then Patricia played the recordings. First, the one where my mom admitted the $5,000 was a loan and that I had paid her back. Second, the one where she said she only wanted to be on the title temporarily for security. Third, the one where she explicitly said, "I know it is your house." The courtroom went silent. My mom's face went pale. Her lawyer looked blindsided. He clearly had no idea these recordings existed. He tried to argue they were inadmissible, but Patricia had already confirmed Arizona's one-party consent law. The recordings were perfectly legal. Judge Ramirez asked my mother directly if those were her words on the recordings. My mom hesitated, then admitted they were. The judge asked why, if she acknowledged the house was mine, was she now claiming equal ownership? My mom stammered something about changing her mind, about realizing she deserved more for her contribution. It sounded weak even as she said it. Then Patricia presented the final piece. Text messages from the past year where my mom explicitly threatened to take the house if I did not let her live there permanently. Messages where she said she would force a sale and take half. Messages where she admitted she was using her name on the title as leverage to get what she wanted. It was all there in writing, her own words. Judge Ramirez was not amused. She asked my mom's lawyer if he had anything else. He did not. He looked defeated. The judge called a short recess, then came back with her ruling. She said that while my mother was technically a joint tenant on the deed, the evidence clearly showed she had no equitable interest in the property beyond the initial $5,000 contribution, which had been repaid, that the house was purchased and maintained entirely by me, that my mother's claim to equal ownership was without merit, that her attempt to force a sale was an abuse of her position on the title. Judge Ramirez ordered my mother to sign a quitclaim deed, removing herself from the title within 30 days. She also ordered my mother to vacate the property, immediately giving her 7 days to remove her belongings. And as a final blow, she ordered my mother to pay my attorney fees, which totaled $8,500. My mom looked like she had been slapped. Her lawyer tried to object, but the judge shut him down. The ruling was final. Court was adjourned. I had won. My mom did not speak to me as we left the courtroom. Her sister shot me a look of pure hatred. Her lawyer mumbled something about filing an appeal, but I knew it would not go anywhere. The evidence was too strong. The recordings were damning. She had no case. Patricia congratulated me outside the courthouse, said it was one of the clearest wins she had seen in a property dispute, that my documentation made her job easy. I thanked her, paid her remaining fees, and drove home feeling a mix of relief and sadness. Relief because my house was finally mine, free and clear. Sadness because I had just gone to war with my own mother in court. This was not how I wanted things to end, but she forced my hand. She got greedy. She tried to take advantage of my trust, and it backfired spectacularly. My mom moved out within the 7 days. She did not ask for help, did not say goodbye, just packed her things while I was at work and left. She went to stay with her sister, who had always enabled her worst behaviors. I changed the locks the day after she left. The quitclaim deed was signed and filed within the 30-day deadline. Her lawyer handled it without drama, probably just wanting to be done with the whole mess. My name was now the only name on the title. The house was legally, undeniably, solely mine. She never paid the attorney fees. I could have pursued collections, but I let it go. I had already won what mattered. Forcing her to pay $8,500 felt petty at that point. I just wanted to move on. We did not speak for 6 months after the court case. No calls, no texts, nothing. Her sister reached out once saying I should apologize for humiliating my mother in court. I did not respond. I had nothing to apologize for. I defended what was mine against someone who tried to steal it. The fact that it was my mother made it worse, not better. Around month 7, my younger sister called me. She had stayed neutral during the whole thing, did not want to pick sides. She told me our mom was struggling, lost her job, was living on her sister's couch, was bitter and angry about everything. My sister asked if I would consider helping her financially just to get her back on her feet. I said no. I told my sister I loved her, but I was done enabling our mother, that she made her choices and now she had to live with them, that I had helped her for years and she repaid me by trying to steal my house. I was not giving her another dime. My sister understood. Said she figured that would be my answer but wanted to ask. We stayed in touch, had dinner once a month, kept our relationship separate from the drama with our mom. She was the only family I had left that I actually wanted to talk to. A year after the court case, my mom reached out. She sent a short email. No apology, just a request to talk. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me. I called her. We had an awkward, tense conversation where she danced around actually saying sorry, but implied she regretted how things went down. She asked if we could move past it. I told her the truth, that I could not trust her anymore, that she showed me who she really was when she tried to take my house, that while I did not hate her, I also did not want her in my life, that I wished her well, but we were done. She cried, said I was breaking her heart, said she was my mother and I owed her more than this. I reminded her that she tried to steal from me, that mothers do not do that to their children, that she broke this relationship, not me. Then I hung up. That was 2 years ago. We have not spoken since. My sister gives me updates occasionally, says our mom is working again, renting a small apartment, still bitter about losing the court case. Still tells people I stole her house, conveniently leaving out the part where she only contributed $5,000 that I paid back. I do not care what story she tells. The people who matter know the truth. It has been 3 years since that court case. 3 years since I stood in front of a judge and proved my mother tried to manipulate and steal from me. 3 years since I cut her out of my life completely, and honestly I have never been more at peace. The house is still mine. I refinanced a year ago, got a better interest rate, lowered my monthly payment. The property value has increased to $330,000. I have over $150,000 in equity. All of it mine, none of it hers. I met someone 2 years ago. Her name is Stephanie. She is a teacher, kind, honest, drama-free. I told her the whole story about my mom early on. She was horrified but supportive, said anyone who tries to steal from their own kid does not deserve a relationship with them. We moved in together last year. She loves the house. We have turned it into a real home. My sister got married last year. I was at the wedding. My mom was there too. We did not speak, did not even make eye contact. My sister seated us on opposite sides of the venue to avoid issues. It was awkward but manageable. I was there for my sister, not for any kind of reconciliation. People ask sometimes if I regret how things ended with my mom, if I wish I had handled it differently. The answer is no. I gave her multiple chances to do the right thing, offered her a fair buyout, tried to negotiate. She chose greed. She chose to go to court, and she lost badly. What I learned from all of this is that blood does not equal loyalty, that being family does not give someone the right to take advantage of you, that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who will hurt you the worst, and that protecting yourself even from family is not wrong. It is necessary. I also learned the importance of documentation. If I had not recorded those conversations, saved those texts, kept those receipts, I might have lost my house. My word against hers would not have been enough, but hard evidence that won the case before the judge even made a ruling. To anyone dealing with a family member trying to take what is yours, document everything. Save texts. Record conversations if your state allows it. Keep receipts. Build an undeniable paper trail. Because when it comes down to it, the truth only matters if you can prove it. My relationship with my mother is over. That is sad in some ways, but it is also freeing. I do not have to deal with her manipulation anymore. Do not have to worry about her next scheme. Do not have to feel guilty for setting boundaries. I am free to live my life without her chaos. Stephanie and I are talking about getting engaged. We want to start a family eventually. Kids who will grow up in this house that I fought to keep. Kids who will never know their grandmother because she chose greed over relationship. That is her loss, not mine. I have built a good life, a career I am proud of, a home I love, a partner who respects me, friends who support me, a sister who stayed neutral and maintained relationship with both of us without drama. I do not need my mother's approval or presence to be happy. I proved that over the last 3 years. If she ever apologizes, really apologizes, and takes accountability for what she did, maybe I would consider supervised contact. Maybe, but I am not holding my breath. People like her do not change. They just find new people to manipulate. So here I am, 32 years old, homeowner, survivor of family betrayal, stronger for it, wiser for it, and completely at peace with the choice I made to fight back instead of rolling over. My mom thought I would cave, thought I would give in to keep the peace, thought family loyalty would override my self-respect. She was wrong, and that courtroom when the judge ruled in my favor and ordered her to give up any claim to my house, that was the moment she finally understood. I was not the scared little boy who needed her anymore. I was a grown man who knew his worth and would not be stolen from, not even by the woman who raised me. That is the story. That is how I kept my house. That is how I learned that sometimes the people you love the most are the ones you have to fight the hardest. And that is okay, because protecting yourself is always worth it. Have you ever had to take a family member to court? Would you have tried to work it out differently, or do you think I did the right thing? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and share it with someone who might be dealing with similar family drama. Subscribe for more real stories about standing up for yourself even when it costs you relationships. Thank you for watching. Thank you for understanding that sometimes being strong means saying no to the people who think they are entitled to what you have earned. Take care of yourselves and remember, family is not an excuse for theft. Protect what is yours. You have every right to.